Dr. Sangeeta, thank you for joining me today. I have been genuinely looking forward to the conversation. Your work across different streams of medicines, integrative, regenerative, and restorative medicine, plus the Take My Power Back initiative, brings such a unique and needed voice to the wellness space. I always love starting with the why. You have built programs rooted in empowerment, longevity, and whole personal health. What inspired the mission for you?
Well, really, it was my own journey. I started off as a singer, a dancer, an athlete, an artist. And when you look at people's journeys, it always is very personal, right? Even though my culture would push me towards doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, but I was actually headed in the exact opposite direction until I myself got sick. And when I got sick, I was in India, in Jaipur. I was competing in a sports competition and took a cholera injection, which put me in a wheelchair and in a coma for almost a year. And after that, I started thinking about medicine. Long story short, I pursued medicine. I pursued an education at University of Maryland, and then I got my residency training in obstetrics and gynecology at Georgetown, started private practice, and then decided, you know what? There's more to this equation than just pharmacy and surgery. So I became the medical director for an international organization called Engender Health. And I had the privilege of working with traditional birth attendants in Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Kenya, Tanzania, Egypt, Morocco, just kind of all over the world. And what I realized was that these people don't use that toolbox of pharmacy and surgery. They use a more expanded toolbox and it works. So when I came back to the United States, I basically decided to leave the practice of the conventional way I was practicing, which was every 7 minutes, which was mostly encouraging people, but then leaving them with either surgery or some kind of prescription, which obviously didn't get to the root of the problem. So 22 years ago, in 2003, I ended up, again, that's a long story short, opening SaJune Institute for Restorative and Regenerative Medicine, where we had over the years 50 different practitioners, DOs, MDs, nurse practitioners, chiropractors, acupuncture, energy medicine, stone medicine, crystal workers, sound workers, everything, hypnotherapists. And I had the privilege of working with them and learning all these different ways. And I then from that point became a faculty in 2005 for some of the larger organizations like A4M and AMMG, and ended up with my own following of students. So I ended up training thousands of doctors, and many of them came and apprenticed in the clinic. And then at that point, I realized that our functional medicine path is way too expensive for the masses. And that's where Take My Power Back came from. And maybe a little bit later, I'll jump into that when we get to it. That kind of leads me up to here. In the middle of all this, I opened up a very specific line of supplements called MD Prescriptives. And I say specific because I had no intention as a physician of making supplements. But when I realized that you needed 50 of zinc and 400 of selenium, and because I was measuring the nutrition, and on American soil, we are all very depleted because the soil is 50 to 60% lower than it used to be. So I ended up looking for supplements that were free of preservatives and dyes and fillers and biological forms and didn't have stearates in them, which are very destructive. And when I couldn't find them, I started to make my own. So I made a line of supplements, which has been open now for since 2006. I tested, so almost 19 years. And it's still a very small line, but it sticks with my principles of that one drop that creates the ripple. Instead of the whole bag of supplements, you take one or two things that turns on metabolism and immunity and adrenals. And so along those principles, I opened up a company like that. So that's kind of like a nutshell.
And both the major decisions in your life are based on your personal experience, and then both have been like remarkable.
Everything was personal experience and a blessing. I
Mm-hmm.
have a story of my life, which I call the 3 bugs and the miracles, because the first bug was the one I got in Jaipur, and the second bug was another one, and then the third bug took me down for 4 months, and I ended up in Costa Rica and realized that the true blue zone life has nothing to do with what you eat and what you exercise, but it has to do with connecting to the 5 elements, which is the sun, the earth, the water, the breath, and joyful purpose connected to your people. So that became really easy. I realized that the gifts were free and accessible to all, and opened up Take My Power Back initiative. That's basically to empower people to be in the driver's seat without a doctor.
Yes. When you referred to that, like what is that really, the Take My Power Backup initiative, and what does it mean?
That initiative started because in 15, people who start in any space in medicine are always going to have women as their first client, right? And then women turns into the men, the husbands. They start pulling the husbands in because they're sleeping better, they have more energy, they have a better sexual drive, mood, anxiety, everything, right? So they pull their husbands in. Then the next thing you see is the sick children, which now the chronic disease rate in children and in the 2 generations below me is higher than our generation. So when you look at that, it pulled my heartstring, because I was like, our prices and our model is way too elaborate and too expensive for making a dent in humanity. So yes, we offer all the more expensive programs, but to the youth, age 15 to 35, I offer tips and tools that are related to those 5 elements, because those 5 elements is what brought me back from full adrenal burnout. And so that initiative is an educational initiative to share tips and tools to put people in the driver's seat for their own health without a doctor. And I have protocols and sometimes some supplements, but it's sort of an organic thing. I launched it a couple of years ago when I more or less stopped teaching practitioners. And my daughter told me that I had to get on social media because I wasn't on social media. And so I shoot content for that about once a month. It's very basic content, but if people do those basic things, you don't need all the supplements, all the hormones, all the doctors, all the hyperbaric oxygen, right? It's the basic foundation. So it's common sense. It's not rocket science.
Correct. And I think I remember talking to a doctor, and then he was saying that we don't take care of our health in the same manner we take care of our finances for some reason. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yes.
yeah, it's cliche that we work so much, we don't take care of our health, and then eventually we come realized with the reality, and then we realize that okay, it's basic things we have been missing in life, and we have not been doing in the life right, and we have to just do small corrective actions, and it's all gonna fall in place.
100%. Yes. It's because our culture lives wrong. We live with the 3 big human problems, which are social isolation, destructive lifestyle, and unequal access to the solutions. When we correct those 3 things, humanity will go in the destructive life means it's not in synchrony with nature.
So what shift you are seeing like now in the overall medical practices as you've started working from a very quite long time? So what shift you're
Yes.
seeing now?
Well, it depends on what field you're talking about. Like overall, there's a certain acceptance that the toolbox of options is wider than just pharmacy and surgery. And that acceptance is starting from the bottom with the patients and the top. Because even doctors, like in our practice, 25% of the patients are physicians or nurse practitioners or their family, right? So they're looking for other options. And from the bottom, because, and I think the pandemic really speeded this along because people were looking for other things, right? So there's a demand for opening up the toolbox to other things than what is normally offered. So that's one trend I'm seeing. The second trend that I'm seeing is that people of younger age are more interested in good health. It's cool to be healthy. It is not cool to be smoking and eating a Diet Coke. They literally, and actually, there's been a study published in the psychiatry journals that's showing that 60 to 70% of young people in the ages of 20 to 35 would choose some kind of alternative mechanism before they would choose to go to a doctor. And that's just common sense. Like, think about what you do if you have a
Correct.
sore throat. You're not running to a doctor, you're
Yes.
gargling, right?
Mhm.
So I think that the era of common sense is being demanded right now. And I think that that's, sort of another trend. But in that process, people are very confused because they go to Google. It's very chaotic. They end up with many tests, many supplements, many steps. It's very expensive. So it becomes out of reach and it becomes frustrating because it's like, who are you following? Are you following this person? You follow that person? I think it's difficult. And really, my launch Take My Power Back, I've never been into like just repeating something somebody else is doing. Like when I launched the Institute 22 years ago in Florida, there was not very, very, very little and rare medical centers that had everything in it with all
Community.
that variety, right? And
Mm.
had a simple model. Same way with the supplement company. I wasn't looking to make a supplement company. Everybody who does the top 3 supplements feels better immediately. So usually when people come in, I say you can keep your supplements or you can drop them because most people come in with a bag these days, and the people who drop them, they generally taking just 3 because my rule is if you have to take more than 6 capsules a day of anything, it's too much. The compliance plummets. So you really have to keep the protocols and the supplements to the minimum
Minimum.
and keep the lifestyle and the breathing and the encouragement on those issues at the top. The more of that they do, the less of this they have to do.
And you're working as a doctor also.
Yeah, I'm board certified in obstetrics and gynecology. I just finished board certifying again last week. I'm board certified in integrative medicine by the
Mhm.
American Board of Integrative Medicine, which is a newer board, which came around a decade after I started. And I somehow passed the exam. So, yes, and I practice out of Glow Spring Health, which is in Orlando, mostly, empowering people to take their own power back, not to be dependent necessarily on coming in to a functional medicine practice. Some people need it, but if you look at people in general, if they're willing to take responsibility, I would like to empower them with whatever they can use to not have to see me. And I tell people that when they see me the first time, like, look, your job is to incorporate as many of these practices as resonates with you and not have to see me. That's your job. Yeah. And a lot of people get to that spot.
Good. So one thing that we see, Dr. Sangeeta, now is that owners want to be present with the patient, but administrative work keeps, expanding. From your perspective, what kind of support systems actually help clinician reclaim the time?
So there's a couple of things. The more complicated your practice is in terms of the more offerings, the more complicated the supplements are and the protocols are, the more administrative work there is. So first of all, having a basic framework with some basic supplements and some basic protocols that everybody in the practice knows, including the front desk, is your key to lowering the time of the physician, say. To support that system, the first thing I did in 2015, trained, I have a 5-point model system where you optimize nutrition, optimize hormones, optimize detoxification, optimize the breath, and balance life. It's called the heart, mind, stress axis. And I basically started certifying people as regenerative health coaches to talk and walk and hold the hand through the process.
Mhm.
So I tested it out. And by 2017, we knew that this system works because The regenerative health coaches lower the overall cost point, but it's more recurring revenue. Second of all, it lowers the physician's time. And you could either pair one physician with one coach, or you could pair one physician with two coaches, or whatever way, whatever ratio works. But basically, aside from me seeing somebody a couple of times a year, they can always reach out to me, but the coach is available. So I feel like regenerative health coaching, being paired with the people, that's one time saver. A second time saver is to have group visits. It's been well proven, well studied. It works very, very well, where people will participate once a month or something that's included. So that's another one. The third, and of course, I told you that the precursor to this is to have some simple protocols. So you don't have to have an MA that knows a million things. Simple protocols, protocol for healthy gut, protocol for cardiac function, protocol for vibrant energy. And we've tested them all. So I feel like having and having under 10 supplements that everybody knows how to use. So you don't have to, and everybody knows the pros and the cons and the benefits and the side effects, so that it's not like every question has to come to the practitioner. And so time saving,
Mm.
those are the big ones, in my opinion. Time saving for administrative, those are the big ones.
Have you explored any tools or automation that could automate your routine tasks or, from the practice perspective?
Like we utilize that less than most. Like we have obviously automatic texts and things that go out to remind people of their visits. I find that to be very useful. People who are coming to these kind of practices, they're having a difficult time accepting any kind of AI coming at them at the moment. I think that it'll get to the point where the mentality might accept it. But because the kind of medicine that we practice is currently cash medicine or concierge, if you accept some insurances and you're kind of complementing it with a monthly fee, people want their hand held by a human. So I feel like we've solved that with coaches. But could we technically automate what the coaches are doing in one heartbeat? In one heartbeat. I know that it's very easy to automate what the coaches are doing, but that wouldn't give, humans still, the feeling of
Connection.
connecting with a human. So we haven't made that step yet. I would call it, we haven't made that compromise yet, because there's this, because of the kind of patients we're seeing and what their expectations are. And also it doesn't work for us either. Like for me, I really love connecting with my patients. I really also feel that this drive to have to see so many patients is killing the doctors. It's like all of us have to simplify our life a little bit. For me, because I've been able to bring my schedule into some kind of balance, I love getting on the phone with the patients. I'm not like feeling like I'm hurried and I'm running from person to person and I'm overwhelmed and I haven't rested. So I think, the other part of this. So basically I think what I'm saying is simplify the protocol, simplify the supplements, simplify the doctor's schedules, like balance it. And then, yes, how do you afford to live? You bring your expenditures within what that affords, instead of always looking for the bigger thing, and that you need more money for that bigger thing, and you need a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and that's going to cost this. So you have to see more patients in a day. I think all these bells and whistles are very expensive, and it makes it difficult to stay in practice well. And people burn out. If you look at people in any form of medicine, whether it's functional, restorative, regular hospital practice, it doesn't matter. Talk to the doctors. I call them dinosaurs right now, because I take care of so many of them, and they're all falling apart. They're all considering retiring, quitting, younger people even. Longevity has to do with simplifying life. And that brings all the administrative things down a little bit. But anyway, in answer to your do I use tools question, the tools that I have found to be most useful are protocols, supplements that go with the protocol, and training programs that are all in writing for practitioners and coaches. So I feel like those tools, and those tools are loaded into our electronic medical system. So for example, if I want someone to do a gut protocol, I just attach the protocols for healthy gut in the note. The patient reads it, and then sometimes they come in to see the coach to be walked through it. Otherwise, they just purchase the supplements from the front desk and they carry on because the booklet is really cute and it's nice. So that is a tool. I noticed that your name is AI Ascent, so I kind of went straight to AI, but we do use tools. And I think these tools that simplify our lives have been the most effective. And to think about the protocols, I put those into place in 2014. So you're talking about almost 12 years. And that means thousands of patients have run through these protocols. So we know that they're effective. And like for a gut protocol, we're not using 8 supplements and 13 steps. We're using 2 supplements and 1 step. So 75% of people are successful within 1 month to get rid of all their symptoms. And if they're not successful in 1 month, we add 2 more things. And the coaches know exactly the order. What does that mean? Practitioner time goes down. Because not until they hit a problem does that patient come back through my door.
Got it. So it's like very methodical and very simplified in that manner. And there is a balance, which is keeping it really going in a efficient manner. So Dr. Sangeeta, if a med spa or a wellness practice is listening right now and feeling overwhelmed, what's the first step you would tell them to take?
I would tell them to do an exercise for their own life, which is called Simplify Life exercise, which is to put all the priorities in the middle, then secondary priorities and tertiary priorities. I have this golden circle, and I ask people to do it individually for themselves. And I also ask practices, because as you know, I have held the hand of hundreds of practices that have come off the ground in this field. And I always say, make sure your core is solid and that everybody knows the core. Okay. Of course, I'm talking individually also, but let's put that to the side because that's not the question you asked me. But as a practice, core. Your core is your core protocols, your core supplements, and your core offerings. Get that amazing. Get that solid and make sure everybody in the practice can deliver the core, not just the doctors. My regenerative health coaches know the hormones. So even if I'm writing the prescription and dosing it, they know when to up the thyroid, down the progesterone, put the magnesium on board because they've been well trained. And most of the patients really love the coaches because they see the coaches more frequently. They can see me anytime they want, but they don't necessarily want to, right? They don't need to. So I feel like practices should really focus on the core offerings. Like if you're talking about longevity, regenerative practices, the biggest mistake is to start adding hyperbaric oxygen and cold therapy and stem cell therapy and peptides. Those are all bells and whistles people are looking for, but that is not going to regenerate. The core is simple. 4 or 5 supplements, couple of hormones, couple of breathing steps, a way to detox. It's very fundamental. So for a practice that's listening out there, how to decrease the administrative stuff, get the core and automate the core. Automate the core. Like the core should be automated. You should have protocols. Easily they can buy the supplements and follow up with the regenerative health coach. And that is a machine that can run on its own. It's not AI. It could be AI, but it doesn't have to be. You can afford in a practice. I've seen practices now. One of the practices I've been working with, they started to add these regenerative health coaches. And I think for every one practitioner, like nurse practitioner or doctor, they have like 2 or 3 coaches. So it's cost effective and it's also effective, right? But those coaches are running on what? protocols,
Okay.
right? Yep. Yep.
So this has been very enlightening, Dr. Sangeeta, very energizing and a lot of useful information and for the day-to-day use also. So you
Thank you.
bring a rare combination of clinical depth and, human-centered leadership. So it has been nice talking to you. Where can listeners learn more about your work, your programs, or the Take My Power Back initiative?
Just to look at Take My Power Back initiative, which is Take My Power Back _ initiative, and mdprescriptives.com. That's my supplement company, which is based around intention because, as you know, most supplement companies now are purchased by large pharma and they don't like for us, we're interested in giving love through that product. So that's a very different receipt, right? And then SaJune, I'm just about to reactivate the training programs and put them online for regenerative health coaching and also for doctors and nurse practitioners to learn about how to prescribe hormones. That's going to be like a 5-module course. And I'm putting that on because so many people asked me for that. So those are the 3 places, SaJune.com, mdprescriptives.com,
Take My Power.
and Take My Power Back is a social media initiative. Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us and for the work you are doing in the industry. That's great and that you have a very remarkable journey.
Thank you.